Vocation versus occupation. In this video, we'll cover the difference between the two and what you should be doing in order to pursue happiness at work and life. If you want to find and nurture your ideal vocation, hobby, or occupation, subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell below. Also, if you like this video, remember to hit the like button and share it with your friends. So you've heard the words vocation and occupation before, but you don't really know if there's actually a difference between them. Well, by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what each of these two mean, and you'll also have 4 simple steps you can use to find one of them that actually works for you. So as usual, the first thing we do is, okay, vocation versus occupation. Well, in reality, both words mean the exact same thing when it comes to what you do for a living. Basically, if you have a gig or a job, especially if it's a primary one, in terms of the amount of time you devote to it. So if you have a 9-to-5 job and that's basically most of your time goes to it, that's probably your occupation. But there is a difference between the two, and that is that even though the words mean the same, vocation also has a different meaning that some people use, and that's that a vocation is an occupation that you feel specially drawn to. In other words, a vocation is like a calling that you feel for a certain occupation. So maybe you really wanted to be a doctor, or you really wanted to be a teacher and you love it, you really enjoy it. And being a teacher or being a doctor is just an occupation that you do, but for you especially, it is something that brings you a lot of joy, a lot of satisfaction. You feel specially drawn to this. And you feel like you're good at it, you feel like you can improve, that you're really contributing, you feel really good doing this occupation. That's what we call a vocation. So as you can probably tell, if you're looking to become more satisfied at work or what you do for a living, you should be striving to get a vocation instead of just an occupation that just pays the bill. But of course, it's easier said than done, and it's easier when it's said in theory than in practice. So for example, you might be someone who has dependent children, you might be someone who has dependent parents or a spouse or bills to pay, and it's very hard for you to change your occupation. Or maybe you're someone who studied for a long time, like maybe a lawyer, and has a lot of student loans and that you have to pay back, and you're knee deep when it comes to your profession in terms of all of the things you have to do in order to get that far. So this takes us to our first step when it comes to what you should choose to do, and that is figure out if you really need a change. You see, changing will require grit, it will require effort, you will be tried many times. Even if you're just looking to switch to a different type of career or even a different type of job within your industry, that's probably going to take some time and some consistent effort on your part. So you need to be very sure that this is really something that you will prefer to do. And we'll go over the steps on how to figure that out later. But at this point, you need to figure out if you are in enough discomfort or there is enough pain with regards to just staying where you're at, if you're bored, if you don't like it. And when it comes also to whether you have some of the hard constraints that we mentioned before in terms of having family, bills to pay, that will make it very difficult for you to, for example, maybe try building your own business, right? Not saying that you couldn't build it on the side, you can, but then again, that also requires a level of sacrifice that you need to figure out if you're willing to do to get to a better, happier position eventually. So let's say that you decided that, yeah, you need to make a change, you want to make a change. Then what's the next step? Well, in order to start doing your calling or vocation, step 2 is to actually know what that vocation or calling is. You have to find it. If you have a few ideas of what that could be, but you're not sure, then try finding ways of doing those things in a low risk way. So for example, maybe you can start helping as a paralegal, or if you want to be a lawyer, for example, but it's a very high cost change in careers, then you might want to start getting together with some lawyer friends you know. You might want to figure out what is the day in the life of a lawyer, of the kind of lawyer that you want to become. There are different ways in which you can start doing what they do, but in a very low risk fashion. Maybe potentially getting like a summer internship if you're someone who's still at school or has that possibility. So you can actually do the work, be there, and see like, you know what, I thought I wanted to do this, but now that I'm doing it, I don't actually like it that much, and that's perfect. Now you know that you don't want to do that before you actually sink all of those resources in it. So what if you have absolutely no idea? You just know that you want to change what you're doing right now? Well, you're gonna have to try many different things in order to figure out what is something that you actually enjoy doing. But obviously, it's not something that you can just do. You can't just, okay, try being a lawyer, a police, a cop, PI, like a sports person, an athlete. No, you have to narrow down the field of possibilities because there's just way too much possibility out there, which is great. But you need to narrow that field down. And you can do this by researching on your own and seeing what are some of your strengths, taking tests online and doing stuff like that. But you could also potentially, if you're willing to, you could hire like a vocational counselor or an expert on that kind of thing. If this is something that interests you guys, make sure to comment below if you want me to make more videos on more in-depth with regards to how you can narrow down that field of possibilities specifically for yourself. Like we all have different strengths, we have different possibilities depending on the country we live in, our age, what we enjoy doing, what we don't enjoy doing. So that's something that we could go more in-depth with. So once you've narrowed down those possibilities and you have tried actually doing the ones that seem more likely to make you happy, then it's a matter of feeling whether do you enjoy just doing what you're doing for the sake of doing it, even if you weren't paid, even if you weren't getting the recognition, even if people didn't tell you, even if your parents or people you know weren't telling you, oh, that's so great that you're doing this, or giving you approval in some way. If you really enjoy what you're doing just for the sake of doing it, then that's a really good sign. If you want more information on what a true vocation or calling should feel like, you should be able to click on a video someplace here, in which I go into more detail with regards to what is it that you should be looking for when it comes to external rewards and internal rewards of doing an activity you enjoy. Alright, so we decided that we needed to change what we were doing, that we wanted to do something else. We found, after a long process of trial and error and a lot of research, maybe assisted, maybe by yourselves, and you finally found what you really wanted to do on a more ongoing basis, that you truly feel that you enjoy doing it and that you can even monetize to get paid for, to have a life off of it. So this takes us to step 3, and that is find the obstacles that are stopping you from getting there. So we mentioned earlier that some hard obstacles might be like having dependent family, having to pay some bills, and maybe what you want to do is not something that you can clearly see how it's going to pay the bills very quickly, right? So that's going to be an obstacle in the sense of you will either have to do it while you're working your normal job currently, or you're going to have to give up on it altogether, right? So those are some of the hard obstacles, but even if you're the kind of person who doesn't have any of those hard obstacles, you might still have a very hard time creating the change that you want in your life. Let me explain. In order to get where you want to go, you will have to produce the right kinds of actions over a long enough period of time so you can actually achieve your goals. This means that there are other obstacles that will pop up that will actually stop you from doing these actions in a consistent basis. So for example, some of these obstacles might be you have maybe negative beliefs about yourself. Maybe you don't believe that you can actually do what you want to do. You don't believe you can get that job that you really want. You don't believe that you can make a career change. You believe that you're too old to make that change and actually make it work. Maybe you are afraid of judgment that other people will give you. Maybe your family will think that you're dumb or that you're doing something wrong, or your spouse doesn't support you. And what these beliefs do is they make you feel like crap. They make you feel stopped. It's a big obstacle. Maybe you already know what you have to do. Maybe you know what the right action is, but you're not taking action because you just don't feel like it. You feel like if you do that, you're going to be punished, or you're not going to get where you want to go, and you're afraid of that. And you are afraid. That's that scary feeling of, oh, if I do this, I'm going to fail, and people are going to call me on it. But then even if you have that figured out and you're working on your belief systems and you really want to do this and you have a strong reason, maybe you're still not being consistent. Maybe you are like one day a week. Some weeks you remember that you have to do this. You have to do this action to get where you want to go. In order to, maybe you have to send a resume to enough employers in the industry that you're looking for. Maybe you have to fix that resume so that it's more attractive to them. But you don't quite do it, and you're not doing it consistently. You're not applying in a frequent enough fashion over a long period of time so you can actually get where you want to go. Or maybe you're building your own business and you're doing things on social media in order to create awareness, but you're not doing it enough. You're doing it maybe once a month. And that's because that's kind of like when you remember that you have to do it and you feel like, oh, I have to do it, and you drag your feet to it. Well, Another big difficulty here is that in order to be consistent, you need to create a habit. You can check some great resources online, like I believe James Clear's book, Atomic Habits. It's a great book that can help you with regards to how can you actually build habits in your life that will help you stay consistent, because that's the name of the game, doing the right action over a long enough period of time. So maybe you know the right action, but you're not doing it consistently, or maybe you're not doing it at all. Now, this part is incredibly powerful because it's a part about mindset and all that stuff. Now, I used to be the person who thought all that was bullshit. I'm a very process-driven person. Like, yeah, talk to me about logic, but it is a real deal. If you don't feel like you want to stand up from your bed in the morning and you find a very hard time to actually dedicate to your project, you find it very hard to dedicate yourself to your project after you come from your job, you're dealing with your family, you're spending time with them, or you're just feeling afraid of making a change. That's the biggest obstacle that's stopping you from actually getting there. Perhaps even bigger than the hard obstacles we talked about earlier with regards to having dependent children, having bills to pay, because people have been able to do things they wanted to even though they had all of these things. But why? Because they had strong reasons. They changed their beliefs if they had beliefs that didn't help them, and they created good, strong habits that allow them to do those things. One thing that we haven't talked about much is having the right strategy. So maybe you have the right beliefs, you have the right habit, and you're taking action, but you're not quite getting there after a long period of time because you're not taking the right kinds of actions. For that, you need a good strategy that you can probably get online, even for free sometimes, or getting people who have been there and done that before, right? So having the right strategy is important, but more important than that are the things that I have already mentioned. Having the right strong stories, the right mindset, all those things. If you want me to go more in-depth into some of these subjects that are very important, whether you're going for a different job or making any kind of change whatsoever in your life, let me know in the comment section below and we can make some more videos on those topics. So we've already covered that first step is figuring out whether you really want to make a change. Step 2, figuring out what is your ideal vocation. What is it that you really will prefer to be doing? And step 3, figuring out what is it that's stopping you, especially if it's something emotional and personal. That you have to have the self-awareness to know, hey, I feel scared. Hey, I don't want to be judged. Hey, this, hey, that, right? And how to deal with those, which again, you can find online, you can do more research, but if you want me to talk about it, comment below. Now, this takes us to step 4, and the last one in this step guide, that is only 4 simple steps. They are simple, but they're not easy. And that is, you guessed it, actually taking the action. So now that you figured out what your obstacles were, you know where you want to go, you research how to get there, you have the right strategies, you're putting your habits in place, well, it's actually time to implement. If you don't do, you're not going to get there. No matter how much you desire it, how much you think about it, it's just not going to happen unless you take the right actions over a long period of time. And that is how you're going to get to your goals, or pretty darn close to them. So now you know the difference between vocation and occupation, and you have 4 simple but not easy steps that you can take in order to find the ideal occupation for you, your ideal calling, your ideal vocation. So if you like this video, remember to hit the like button below, share it with your friends, and hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you know whenever a new video comes out.